for Karen, and I would like to call this May 22nd, or 27th, 2025 Lower Island Township Board of Commissioners. It's a regular meeting, and the time is 6 o'clock, so we'll call this meeting to order. Proof of publication is available. I'm joined this evening by Commissioner Schwartz, Commissioner Vallone, Commissioner Brown, and Vice President Nagy, and we will begin our meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes, which we will take one at a time. So I would be looking for a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of April 28th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Vallone and a second from Commissioner Schwartz. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. The next item would be the regular meeting minutes from the May 12th, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Vice President Nagy and a second from Commissioner Brown. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, the next section on our agenda is the presentations, and we welcome everyone who's here this evening. Our first presentation on the agenda is the Township Pavement Management Program, and that presentation is by Scott Russell, PE from Bowman Engineering. If you could approach, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm Scott Russell. I'm with Bowman Associates. In 2023, we were hired by the township to prepare a pavement management program for the township. Just wanted to give a little bit of background, just to give a little understanding of a perspective so that I can better explain the program to you. I, too, am a township supervisor. I'm a supervisor at East Hempfield Township. I'm on my third term, so I am 16 years into being a township supervisor at this point. I came on to the board in 2010 during the Great Recession, and we had a lot of challenges at that time, obviously, with not the funding revenue coming in, a lot of things going on economically at that point. So things were rather challenged. But when I came on board, one issue we were having with our township was our maintenance of our roads. And with me being a civil engineer and being the first engineer on the board, I took a passionate interest in that situation. And I worked with our township staff and our board, and we started developing a pavement management program for the township and basically redirected our funds and made some changes to the way we were operating. The reason I bring that up here to you as an example and about my background is that is something similar to what we're going to talk about tonight at this point with this program. There's a lot of similarities between our two townships. My township has 120 miles of road miles, municipal miles that we're responsible for. We have about $850,000 in liquid fuel funding. You have about 62 road miles, and you have about $550,000 in allocated liquid fuel funding. So there are some similarities. East Hempfield's obviously a bigger township in terms of road miles, but there are a lot of things that are similar. So when I came on board and was looking at the program, we utilize a program called robotics. And robotics is to use artificial intelligence, and basically, it's oversimplify it. You have two cell phones. One cell phone is video recording your roadways. The second cell phone is giving turn-by-turn directions, so you get 100% coverage of the roadways. So utilizing that platform, we conducted a map of the entire road network within the township. And then there was a color coding that went along with it. And that color coding was dark green, which is basically a brand new paved roadway, to bright red, which is a roadway that's failing, kind of a red, amber, and green situation. Green being good, red being bad, amber being warning. So just like a traffic light. So we did the mapping from that. One of the things that Robotics did was it does a frame-by-frame picture every 10 feet of the road. So we were able to drill down when we saw a section on the road that was red. We were able to drill down and see what the problem is. When we saw amber, we were able to drill down and see what the problem was. So I'm going to try and just pull up the map here real quick and just have this up on the screen. Wrong one. There it is. So this is the township that, and this has been updated by your staff. There is a section right here that was recently paved in 2024 that's now green. But you can see that is just a graphic of what I would see on the screen as we were doing the survey. And then we would drill down to the individual roads. So in 2023, we met with township staff, got some pavement history as to how the township was doing their paving and the pavement program to date, the methods that were being used. And then we drilled down into individual streets. And what we did was we prepared a Excel file, which I'll just open up briefly and then we'll back out of it for a moment. Once it loads here. There we go. So we prepared this Excel file and just wanted to show you the detail that went into it. Every single one of your streets was analyzed, and basically the way they were analyzed is they're broken into segments. A segment is intersection to intersection. So you might have 5 segments because you got 5 intersections that break up a road. And we analyzed those down to that level. So we didn't go down to the nitty-gritty individual roads, but we basically analyzed it in groups of roads. And we also put in here, you had the rating from Robotics that was located here. And then we had the priority that went along with it. So if it was a 5, that was basically green. If it was a 1, that was red. And so that just kind of gives you a perspective. Now what it would do is it would average out. So you might have a couple hundred feet of red over a half-mile roadway. It would average it out, so it would not be red, it would be amber or something like that, but you'd have some bad sections in there. And so as we were talking with the township staff, we were looking at what's the best approach to putting a pavement management program together in a plan. And based off my experience, a lot of people try and plan 20 years out, but I've always recommended you do a 10-year plan. Because a lot changes over time. Some roads are going to fail sooner, some less are not going to get as bad over time and fail at a much slower rate. So we broke it down into a 10-year cycle, and then we put a priority. You can see it's a little small, but the priority, a 1 was urgent, a 2 was within 3 years, a 3 was 5 years, 4 was in the next 10 years, and then 5 was after 10. And when you break up your roadway and you're doing a 10-year plan, you're trying to hit half your roads in that 10-year time. So if you have 62 miles, you're trying to hit 31 miles of your road in that 10-year period of time with some sort of maintenance treatment. Typically, you're trying to hit every road is getting maintained at least once every 20 years in a pavement management program. So that was the Excel file was prioritized in that way. And an initial plan was brought out to presented to the township. Now, taking a step back to East Hempfield Township. So in 2010, when I came on board, our township had, for about 10 years, deferred maintenance on the roads. Money was going elsewhere. When I came on board, being the civil engineer on my township board, I convinced the rest of my board members to refocus our infrastructure and prioritize back onto the roads from other types of projects. So we looked at what we can do in terms of funding, and 2010, obviously, from a revenue year, was a bad year. And we were just restarting our program, a pavement program. So our first year, we actually did a PIB loan, and we did a $2.5 million PIB loan to just start the program and to address some other things while we were working at our revenue and the shortfalls that were occurring in 2010. As I've developed and done a number of these programs over the years, and I applied it to my own township, one of the rules of thumb, just a very basic rule, I found this applies to every one of these programs I've worked on setting up, is if you're in a program where you're kind of in a catch-up mode, where you're you're doing some major maintenance on your roads. And so you're not in a situation where your roads are all what we call green and you're just maintaining them, but you have a lot of these ambers and reds that we're talking about. When you're playing in kind of a catch-up mode, the rule of thumb is 2 times your liquid fuel funds is really what you need to be putting into your roads. So at that time, our liquid fuel fund is, because this is before Act 89 in 2013, where there was a significant increase in the liquid fuels. So at that time, East Hempfield, well, right now we're making $850,000 in our liquid fuel count. Our liquid fuel count was about $500,000 at that point. And we were in some big catch-up time. So actually, the first 2 years before 2013, we were putting in about 3 times the liquid fuel fund amount. So we had about $500,000 of liquid fuel funds. We were putting another $1 million into our roads, about $1.5 million. Once Act 89 kicked in 2013, it dropped down to about 2. And what I've found is that seems to be the sweet spot. Most municipalities that are doing rehab on their roadways that are not in maintenance mode are spending about twice their liquid fuel funds just to catch up on the roads. So we have now, since 2010, we're now in 2025, we've been at 15 years at East Hempfield. We're just getting to a point where we're starting to talk about some of our roads, working on maintenance on them now. Basically, the roads that we had done in 2010 are now coming up for maintenance at this point. So that I had that in the back of my mind, but I did not look at that. So we basically went through this drill first. We went and assigned different types of maintenance treatments based off what we observed for every one of these road segments. And the township gave me guidance, and it was prioritized as to what things would look like. And what we came up with, again, this is a little small to see, but I will explain it to you, is we found out that basically that rule of 2 times the liquid fuel fund checks out in this situation for your scenario, just like it did for East Hempfield's. We're recommending that you're spending about $1 million to $1.4 million as inflation kicks in over the next 10 years. You're going to be spending on your roadways, which is 2 times your liquid fuel funding. So we went through the whole drill first, and then just doing that back check, that rule of thumb checked out. So that is the program. What we have in here is there's a number of maintenance treatments that we've recommended, that some of which you have not engaged with the township yet at this point for consideration. One of the things that I've done with a number of municipalities, including my own township, is we incorporated geotextiles into the roads. Geotextiles cost about $2 a square yard compared to $8 a square yard for like an inch and a half of wearing. A geotextile is a pretty cheap option. And basically what that does is it extends the life of your wearing course by almost a factor of 2. So for $2, you're getting almost a doubling of the life of your road with your treatment. So it's a pretty cost-effective method. We've also incorporated, and we're starting to incorporate a number of municipalities, and now just starting in my own township, we're doing Cape Seals. And a Cape Seal is what would be traditionally an oil and chip road, but instead of having the loose stone on top at the end, you actually spray fog seal over top, and when it's done, it looks like a blacktop road. So that's another potential treatment that can be utilized. That is actually a relatively cheap maintenance option once you actually get into maintenance mode. So those items were suggested to actually incorporate into the plan. So there are a number of places where there's roads that were recommended that would be a milling of the road, a leveling course, a geotextile, and then an overlay over top of that. That's probably your worst case scenario. And then a number of areas where it was recommended just patch and overlay, and some other areas that could potentially be a Cape Seal or a product called Ralumac, which also does the same thing. Those are what were suggested into the program at this point. But what I'd like to kind of encourage is, I know this is a pretty big number when you look at this, and I know the history of the township, and I know you had last year you had you had that $1 million plus paving project that you put into place when you did your paving last year. At the end of this 10-year period of time, so for 2025 to 2034, 10 years will go by, you will spend about, if you follow this program, about $12 million, $12 to $13 million total on your roads. At the end of that period of time, you will start getting a lot of your roads into what's called maintenance mode. And when you go into maintenance mode, for every mile of rehab that you did in this current period of time, you can maintain 2 to 3 times as many roads in maintenance mode. So maintenance mode is what is called like a scratch overlay. It's a ½ inch to inch overlay over top of the road, about $5 a square yard versus $15 to $16 with what I was just describing right now. So very cheap to maintain, lasts about 15 years. That's where you really want to get your roads to, because once you get to that, then you can start scaling back the amount of money you're spending on your roads. It seems counterintuitive, but what you'll find out is that when you're doing road maintenance, you want to address the roads before they start getting cracked. As they start getting cracked, it becomes much, much more expensive to maintain. So when you start seeing the first signs of cracking, that's when you're still in maintenance mode, and that's when you want to address it. Once it starts getting really cracked, that's when you go into rehab mode, and you're experiencing about 3 times the cost. And if it gets to a point where it's falling apart and potholed, then you're in reconstruction mode, and that's about 6 times the cost. And that's definitely what you want to keep your roads from ever going into reconstruction mode. And if you can get to a point where you're just doing these scratch overlays and stuff like that and get into maintenance mode, you're going to really stretch your dollars and then allow your tax dollars to go to other places here. But in my opinion, having driven your roads, you're in that rule of that 2 times your right now what you get for your liquid fuel funding is where I see the township at right now. And again, that's coming from my personal experience, having sat in your shoes as a township supervisor with my own township in East Hemphill Township. So that is a very quick overview of this, and I'm sure that's going to be a lot of questions, and I just threw a lot at you. And I know the perspective of a supervisor, because I know this is all taxpaying money. I know this is a very important concept. And, roads don't complain like everything else. All the other things you got challenging you with how you spend money and your priorities and how you prioritize things. Roads don't complain. Residents that drive them might complain, but the roads themselves don't complain. So it's challenging to kind of do that when you have competing interests with ball fields and everything else that comes before a board of supervisors. But really, if you get that to maintenance mode, then in the future generations, and you keep that to higher level, then that's going to, for our future generation, a future board of commissioners, you're giving them a gift because they'll have the ability with the infrastructure dollars to put money elsewhere versus putting into the roads.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mr. Russell. I'll open it up to the rest of the board if there's any questions at this point. Or
I'll go ahead. First I want to say thank you for putting in the effort, and to Manager Davis for starting this project a long time ago in your previous role, and to Director Powell for working through this. I wanted to clarify your rule of thumb on the liquid fuels. When you say 2 times the amount of liquid fuels, that means essentially a 1-to-1 match we'll be spending, not twice in addition to
Right.
our liquid fuels.
It's a 1-to-1 match.
1-to-1 match, okay.
And I also recognize that liquid fuels goes to lighting, it goes to equipment, there's a lot of things. So like even for East Hemphill, our liquid fuels was going to our lighting, it was going to our dump trucks, it was going to our road salt. So when we did that 2-to-1 rule, really, we still had that going on. It was really general fund making up the difference for that. But it's just a rule of thumb. That's why I found that is the road, when PennDOT created the liquid fuel program and how it's evolved today, it meets about half your maintenance costs as we're talking about the major maintenance costs. It does not cover the full cost of maintaining a road anymore.
Thank you. And then to Director Powell, how do we turn all this data essentially into a true plan? What is the next steps, or how do we turn this into into a roadmap of what years we start doing these rehab methods and the geotextiles versus repaving, and how do we turn it into a practical plan for us?
That's the tough question. So one thing that I wanted to do when I first came on, learning how we were doing the infrastructure projects now, where for instance, this summer we're doing the ADA and stormwater management in one neighborhood. The next year we will pave that neighborhood. Once we're done with that work, the water company comes in, the gas company comes in, all the private utilities are updated, we can go in and pave that street. I wanted to take that and take a look at this program that Scott's outlined, this plan, and get a gauge of where we're going in the next 5 years. I know, the industry has always opted for that 20-year goal. I think Scott's hitting right on the head where 10 years makes it a lot more manageable, a lot more practical. But even for us, let's start somewhere. Let's get a 5-year plan even and see where we're going with that. We've taken our cost per unit, which is a square yard of paving, and we've applied it to some of the neighborhoods that we see in his graph, or in the picture that showed the GIS mapping. We picked some of the neighborhoods that were really going to be needing attention in the next 5 years. And we took that cost per square yard, took the square yardage of those neighborhoods and applied it to that. And while we're a little short this year on Highland Estates and Highland Village, the next few years after that, we're spot on with the 1.1 million, which was good. It was cool to see it work out in kind of an easier fashion. But what I don't want to shy away from is the program that we have, where we're going in, we're giving the private utilities a chance to upgrade their infrastructure. We're going in and we're updating our stormwater facilities. I mean, we're getting the fee for that. I think it's appropriate that we do that work. So how do we incorporate that plan? That's what we're trying to work through now. I think the next 5 to 10 years will be really key for this. And then we can do, as Scott said, we can really start to look at maintenance mode. So if he pointed to the graph where you saw Allendale was green, that was paved last year. It was yellow/orange before, when this survey was originally done. Now it's all green. What do we do in 5 years, in 10 years? I mean, we'll be out there, crack sealing the minor cracks and things like that as they come up. But what happens when as he said, you really start to see the cracks? What do we do? I think that's really where we're going to have to put. We're going to have a good plan in place as to how we go about with all those alternative treatments. And I think, we're just really going to have to plan. But it's going to be a mind shift. It's going to take cooperation on staff's part and the board's part. We're going to have to educate the public. One of the pavement treatments that he mentioned was the Cape Seal. If you're not familiar, he actually outlined it. The old tar and chip method, where they lay down the slurry or the asphalt mix, and then they just throw down all sorts of aggregate down and let it go. Eventually the traffic compacts it down, the loose stone gets rolled off to the side. That's kind of the old way of doing it. The new way is a very minimal amount of stone that gets laid down, and then it gets sealed again on top, and you have a really nice surface. But from the public's perspective, they see the binder course get laid down, they see the stone get spread out, and then it's going to be 1,000 calls to each one of us saying, why are they tar and chipping Allendale or something like that, or whatever neighborhood it is. So it's educating them that it's not necessarily that. And that's just one pavement alternative. Scott also mentioned the geotextile. We incorporated that into our project this year. And that is a very, that's almost become an industry standard for all road projects these days. Even new construction, they're laying geotextile down. So I was glad to see when I came on board in December that we were able to easily incorporate that into the Highland Estates and Highland Village paving project this year. So we'll continue to do that, because I think it's worth it, and we've seen case studies where that's been very beneficial. So, I think the last part of it is really, we're going to have to think about maybe budgeting more for some engineering too. Additional engineering, where I think we're going to have somebody like Scott routinely, whether it's on an annual basis or a biannual basis, take a look at the pavement throughout the township and help us along with that. Give us the professional advice of where they see, the cost beneficial methods to use, what's the appropriate methods to use, and help us along with that. Similarly, I think engineering advice would be great for how we do stormwater, because, again, I don't want to abandon that program at all. And just other issues that come up. I think like core sampling, just taking a look at a more in-depth look at our pavement structures. We recently did a repair in Cumberland Manor where it looked like the shoulder was just degrading and crumbling. And when the guys got out there and dug it up to make the repair, it turns out there was only about 1.5 to 2 inches of asphalt on top of dirt. There's no base. So having that sampling in appropriate areas would be helpful too, to help us make the right decision. So we're gonna have to all work together going forward and come up with a plan. But I think really, like I said, these next 5 to 10 years are gonna be key as we go in, replace and upgrade the infrastructure and provide a good base going forward. After that point, we can really, as Scott said, start to look at the maintenance mode more. So we're working on a plan. We have it at least for the next 5 years, but we'll continue to monitor that. And all good plans have to change at some point. So we'll keep an eye on it.
I think one thing to take in perspective, this is a plan that just evolves over time. But the basic rule, the old Public Works foreman, Public Works Director, basic rule of make it black still is kind of a rule today. And you can't go wrong by just doing something. You'll tweak it as the plan goes along, but just getting into it and just doing it, this is one where you can just dive into it and just start doing it. It'll start coming together. There'll be some hiccups, some trials and errors. Some things will have to get refined. We certainly can help out at times with some expertise and stuff like that. But just getting in there and doing it and just learning from it, and the program will almost take on a life of its own. I mean, in my township, as an example, it's automatic now, and we've learned a lot over the years that's tailored to what works best for us as a township, which is going to be different than what works best for Lower Allen Township. Every municipality has a little bit different needs, different requirements, different issues. But at the end of the day, it's just doing it, getting into it and doing it, and just jumping in. So,
Are there any other questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Well, first of all, thank you for being here, Scott. Appreciate it. I'm just elated that we're spending this kind of time on this topic. Manager Davis, thank you for making sure this got up front for us, that we would continue to just have this discussion. I'm just so glad that we're putting some attention to this now. I have a couple of questions having to do just with some clarification, and I think this is more for the public in general. I believe all the commissioners know. We're talking about township roads, not any of the PennDOT roads, which, right,
that's correct.
For all intent and purpose of my just making sure that becomes clarified, the township roads we sometimes often mistake for roads that we're responsible for. So when you're talking about most of Lisburn, or I think all of Lisburn Road and things like that, I think Gettysburg Road, they're all PennDOT roads, and that's PennDOT's responsibility.
Right.
That they take care of separately. But I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified. But then also the $12 million estimate that you're talking about, that's 12 million basically in half or close to it because of the liquid fuels money, or you're saying $12 million investment over and above what we would acquire?
That's 12 million total cobbled together with liquid fuel
Right.
funding and general funding.
Right.
And that assumed, originally when we put the plan together in 2023, we had a ridiculous inflation factor because of what we were experiencing at that time. What the current number, when I say it's actually $12.8 million, when I say that number, that's a 3% inflation factor. If you, obviously, right now, you're looking at a total of almost 10 million. So if 10 million doesn't get to full point without inflation.
Right.
So we did incorporate inflation into the numbers, so the later years are at the mercy of how inflation plays out over the next 10
So
years.
it's about 6 million plus on kind of,
Yeah, give or
out of
take,
pocket,
right,
so to
out
speak.
of your general fund, right.
got it. And then, thank you. And then also, just, I'm just say thanks in advance to staff for continuing this conversation as we move along to dial it all in. I agree, it's a great investment of taxpayer dollars that I believe we are in a good position to at least get this started in Lower Allen Township without too much disruption to taxes. So I think that it's my understanding of where we're at financially, we should be able to at least get a program like this going. And then I would just thank future boards for continuing the project, because it's 10 years will go by in a snap. And I have faith in our finance director now that she'll make sure that the board's guided as far as how to prudently budget for it from year to year. So look forward to that conversation as we get into the fall. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for this study, because one of the questions you get from residents is, well, how do you decide what roads get paved? And it's difficult, but I really didn't have an answer for them. And with this, now we have an answer. We have a set of metrics where it's not just, oh, you play favoritism to this neighborhood. It's like, well, no, we're doing it on an as-needed and who needs it most basis. So this study is great for all of that. Director Powell, I think with your background, this is going to be huge to help with the planning of this. And I think planning moving forward is what we need, because we don't want to get into the repair aspects anymore. I think we need to get ahead of the curve. And in the township we have, I believe most of our residents rely greatly on infrastructure. And so it's worth investing into, and it's worth maintaining for the future. So I think we're on the right track, so I thank you.
Just real briefly, I'd reiterate the thanks to staff and to Mr. Russell for bringing this all together. It's important and necessary, in my opinion. I have one quick question. I'm going to save it for commissioner reports. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay. Okay, anyone else have anything to share? Okay, thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Russell. We appreciate your presentation tonight.
Thank you all, and I'm glad to continue assisting.
Thank you. Okay, and up next on the agenda, we have two Trinity High School student representatives who have graciously agreed to attend our meeting and provide us with a brief presentation on the current activities at their high school. So welcome.
Hi, thank you, Madam President, for having us here tonight. My name's Kate Warner, and I'm currently a junior.
My name is Quinn Smith, and I'm also a junior, and we're the school captains at Trinity.
So some recent events that have been going on at Trinity are in late April, we had the Mrs. Fayfar Day of Caring, which was a school-wide day of service, and 16 nonprofit organizations hosted our students at their sites for service projects. With this, a total of 1,347 service hours contributed by the student body in one day.
Wow.
On May 16th, Lower Allen police officers came to our lunches and talked about the workforce in law enforcement and their experiences.
This past Friday, the class of 2025 graduated, which was a total of 145 students.
Our boys and girls lacrosse teams, as well as the softball team, are in district games tonight.
We are close to the completion of the new volleyball gym auxiliary building.
And with that, we founded our boys volleyball team this spring, and they had a winning season. And on June 3rd, our final exams begin, and on June 6th is our last day of school, which we're very excited about.
Oh, well, thank you very much for your presentation. I don't know if the commissioners have anything to add, but we wish you the best of luck in your finals and concluding your school year. And just, again, we appreciate you coming to our meeting and sharing some of the current events at the school. So thank you so much. I don't know if
Yeah.
there's
I
anyone else.
just reiterate the thanks for coming out.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate it, and good luck on finals.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, next on the agenda is a presentation with respect to the MS4 program annual update. and that will be provided by the township's Environmental Programs Manager, Barbara Arnold.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I know you're all like excited to see this presentation. So our MS4 program, as you are reminded that every year we need to present to the board, give you an update, and this one is a little different. In the past, I guess this is my first one that I'm going to give to you. So what is MS4? It is our municipal separate storm sewer system. So it's our system of pipes or channels or swales or inlets. Any of those things can be included in that convey the water, capture and convey the water, discharge our storm water to the Commonwealth waters. We keep that separate here in the township. We are not, there are municipalities that do have combined systems. We do not here, so we do have a separate system for that. So, and this is just a diagram that shows you what all can go into that. We have anything on your lawn or in your driveways, in the roadways, on your roof. All of those things can enter into our waterways. So in Lower Allen Township, we have, and these are approximate numbers that we pulled together, approximately 175,000 linear feet of storm pipe. We are updating that, as Director Powell said, whenever they do infrastructure upgrades and paving projects, we have incorporated that, so that number has gone up over the past couple of years. 250 storm manholes, 85 outfalls, 1,750 inlets. That is an approximate number. We are mapping all of those in our GIS system and naming all of those currently. 167 best management practices. Most of those are on private property. Those could be anything from an infiltration trench to a rain garden, a basin of some kind, and then the 63 miles of township roads. So the background for our project, we've been an MS4 permit holder since 2003. We are currently in a permit cycle that has been extended. So our permit started in 2018. It was supposed to expire, get a new one in 2023. As you're aware, they extended that for us. They extended it to 2024 and then to 2025, and now we are extended to 2026. So currently we're still working on that old one. There are some things that we have checked off, things like our Appendix B and C. We did submit that last year. We're hoping that it is still in the system for DEP, but if not, we will upload that final again if it is not there. And then we are working on those PRP projects that we had started way back in 2018. So municipalities are required to get a permit that covers the 5-year period. As I said, ours has been extended. We have pollution control measures and a pollution reduction plan. That pollution reduction plan are those basins that we have been talking about over the last few years. Annually, we submit a report. That report goes from July 1st to June 30th of the following year. So we're coming up on the end of our cycle. We should be submitting that report by the end of September. And then we have minimum control measures that we have to evaluate every year, update them, add to them, check things off that we've completed. So, and this is part of the minimum control measures, this program right now, this presentation. So as I said, the 2018 general MS4 permit has been extended to 2026. We are not 100% positive as to what that will entail. It looks like there are some things that we know from the draft permit. 2 weeks ago, I attended a DEP program. They said that there were 60 entities that provided comments on that draft permit that is out there with over 2,000 comments. So the township did provide comments. I'm happy to say we had 19 of those 2,000 comments. So we'll see what comes of that. So So there are 6 minimum control measures there. You've heard these before. So we have public outreach and education, public involvement and participation, illicit discharge detection and elimination, construction site, stormwater runoff controls, post-construction stormwater management, and pollution prevention and good housekeeping. So some of the things that we've done, and this is by all means not a complete list of everything that we've done. I tried to pull some things that were kind of new this year that we've been doing. For MCM number 1, the requirements are up there that you can read if you wish. What has Lower Allen Township done? We distribute a monthly newsletter on MS4 to it's an e-newsletter. It also gets published on Facebook, and it's archived on our hopefully new website. It was on the old website, so it is also linked on our new website as well. We mail educational flyers. So one area, we had an illicit discharge report that an area of the township there was somebody dumping oil down a storm drain. We sent a targeted mailing to that whole community, just giving them an update of where they can dispose of it, that it is an MS4 violation. There was no fining or anything done to residents, but we just wanted to get the word out there of where they can take those things. And then we do presentations. So we've been to high schools, summer camps, colleges, Bethany Village, and library programs. And then this spring, we started a weekly Watershed Wednesday. So it is a fact about our local watershed that is posted on our Facebook page. It is just a 15-second read, just a quick fact, and we are getting some traffic on that as well on our Facebook page. This month, we have the kayak course that is going to be in conjunction with the stormwater and flooding program. And then we've also presented at Alliance for the Bay, the Water Leadership Institute Cohort 2025. I had an impromptu presentation 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and then at Professional Recyclers of Pennsylvania Certification Program. MCM number 2 is our public involvement. So this has, we do a lot of outreach. In the past year, we've outreached and done cleanups with Yellow Breaches Watershed Association. Chesapeake Bay Foundation reached out to ask for a location on the Yellow Breaches to do a cleanup, and they did their teen challenge there. That was at Creekwood Park just the end of April. We do storm drain identification, and we've also do our public outreach meetings here, lots of meetings, and through our discussion on stormwater fees. Illicit discharge and detection, this is probably the one in the last year that we've done the most new work on. So we do test our outfalls or sample our outfalls, our priority and our dry weather flow monthly. So total, we have 17 of those with those 2 parameters. We do a sampling of the water there. It is not a sampling that is sent off to a lab. It is done in-house. It's just giving us a baseline of what the water looks like. This would be, so if we would see an ammonia spike in the water, then we would know that we want to sample it and send it off to a lab because there's something going on there. If there's a heavy metal that we're seeing, we can send it off to a lab there. But it's giving us a baseline of those priority outfalls. Something that I felt like was important for the program, especially because the recreation that's involved in Lower Allen Park and along the Yellow Breaches Creek. We've also are updating our ArcGIS on that and creating brochures on illegal dumping and construction runoff. And MCM4, we work with our CED department to do construction site stormwater runoff inspections. So they sign off on those, they send them over to us. They're the ones out there doing the inspection on the properties as those new properties are built. So it's helped to get an extra set of eyes on those things, just to make sure everything's in order. I am not aware of anything that's been an issue, but it's just nice to know. Also, we have an MOU with the county, so if it's over an acre, the county then handles it for us, and they take over there. Post-construction management. So with this, we require BMP owners to enter into a maintenance agreement We tie that then into a credit if they're eligible for a credit, so then they can get up to 50% off. This year, we are also creating a GIS map layer, so we'll be able to see where all of those BMPs are in the township. That is important for the next round of permitting possibility, that we know where all of those are, and it's important for us to know where they are at. If there would be an illicit discharge and it's going to somebody's BMP on private property, we would want to know that, and be able to report that correctly. So. And then MCM6, we do a MS4 training for all employees. We have been since 2003. There's an online training for administrative staff, fire, police, new hires, and EMS. So they have all taken that, and they have to complete it within 80%. All of you are receiving the training now, so this is part of your training. And then we create a tracking mechanism for our street sweeping, our infrastructure upgrades, and our inlet cleaning all through ArcGIS. We have flyers, pamphlets, and mailers on pollution prevention as well. So our pollution reduction plan, this is those 10 basins that we've talked about in the past. So if we collect, we have to remove 10% of our sediment. It equates to 317,000 pounds of sediment per year. If we collect all the sediment each year, it would fill approximately 73,791 half-gallon ice cream containers. If that was actually ice cream, you would be able to feed every resident in the township with an ice cream party 56 times in 1 year. So. And then this is the map of our basins. I circled some of those for you. The green ones that are circled there, the United, I don't know if you can see the green, but the United Methodist Home for Children, BJ's Wholesale Club, and Bethany Village were all retrofitted last year in 2024. We have Ross Moyne Business Center, which will hopefully be done this year. I believe that's on your agenda tonight. So that should be completed this year in 2025. And then the Westport Business Center, that one is scheduled to be completed in 2026. We are hopeful to get that done before that cycle ends for 2026, so that we don't have to carry it into our next permit cycle. So then what is next? We want to continue to update our GIS program. There is a story map on the horizon of all of our BMPs, all of our basin retrofits, continue communication with our residents and the public on stormwater management programs. We want to map those public and private BMPs, and then continue our water sampling into the future. Hopefully complete those PRP projects in 2026, and then prepare for all those changes that are coming on that new permit. So, any questions?
Okay. Thank you so much, Barbara. Appreciate that. Very thorough presentation. I'll open it up to the other commissioners if there's any questions.
Madam President, I just have a comment and a question. First of all, thanks for your continued work on this. It's been 5 or 6 years since we've kind of poked the bear on the MS4 stuff here in Lower Allen Township, and I'm just wondering, you had mentioned earlier about sending a letter out in the neighborhood, or I guess when we saw some, I guess it was oil, something being poured down. Did you know or suspect exactly who that was and sent the letter in general, or I'm just curious?
So if we know, we would send a notice of violation, which is a letter that states the ordinance, states what the infraction was, and let them know that particular person. Off the top of my head, I do not remember in the oil case if we knew exactly who it was, but we sent, it was a postcard actually that we created and sent out to every resident. Just a quick little notice of violation, or notice that, hey, somebody saw it or we saw it. We confirmed it. So if somebody calls us, we will go out and confirm to make sure that yes, there was something there, or we did see something in the inlet, and then we'll send it out. We've also had some areas, one area in particular in the last year where there was, someone was using the inlet as their ashtray. So, and we did know exactly who that was, sent them a notice, and they called immediately and were very apologetic and had no idea that it was an MS4 violation. They had actually just moved here and weren't from the area and had no idea that, what MS4 was. So it is an educational piece.
So what I'm hearing and kind of what I got from the presentation is that, and the feel here is that you're getting, it seems like you're comfortable that the education and just the overall information that's being shared, and the letters that we can send to people, because I don't hear anything about it anymore. I mean, I don't. The businesses were a little shocked at first when they had to self-inspect their BMPs and things like that. They weren't mad, they just didn't understand it, and this was years ago. But other than that, I don't get calls on it anymore. And so I guess my question is it working for you? Do you feel like we're cleaning things up adequately? And if that's the case, it sounds like things are pretty smooth right now.
I think the word is getting out there to residents. I think they're being educated on it. We are definitely getting more calls of questions, like, can you do this? Are you allowed to do this? I just moved here. What's the rule? Am I allowed to wash my car in the street? What do I do when I'm done with my pool at the end of the year? Things, we get questions, and that, I think that speaks volume to our education, that the word is out there, people are talking about it, and people want to know what the right thing to do is.
Right, and then just finally, I'd just like to thank management and staff for the continued, looking for grants and things like that as we move along. When we started this program, we've not raised the fees at all. We have not needed to do that, but I can tell you, we were really sure when we started the fee that we were required to basically put out there. We did it as close as we can to the vest as far as what we thought we would spend and that. So thanks again for getting all of the extra money coming in to help with these big projects. This stuff's expensive, these retrofits and things like that. And for seeking out the grants and in the future looking for more of those, that we can continue keeping that fee really low. In comparison to our neighbors around the area, we're really low. So thank you. Mhm.
Okay, anyone else have anything?
I would just like to say that, Manager Davis, who kind of headed up the stormwater program here, and now Ms. Arnold, I think you two have done a fantastic job of really taking care of the needs of the township. I wish there was not an MS4 permit, because quite frankly, most of it's garbage. We know that. The data from York County has come out and showed that the computer models are off by orders of magnitude. I don't know if you guys got that study or not, but Don Kiefer worked with a lot of the county commissioners to get some metrics, because all of this was done without any testing, and they throw a bunch at us that we have to do that I think is just, quite frankly, a waste of funds. So I wish we could get rid of the state kind of stuff and just let you guys do your thing, because the $19 a quarter that we pay per residence, I think, is very inexpensive compared to what you have been able to accomplish, in spite of the state kind of stepping on you every step, saying you need to waste money on things that we probably don't need to do. So thank you to you both for getting all the grant monies and doing the best you can with a very flawed system.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation. Okay, the next section of the agenda is to open up the floor to audience participation. We'll open the floor to basically make a note of anyone who's here in the audience to participate on an agenda item. And then if there's anyone here in the audience to participate or to speak to something that is of township relevance but not on the agenda, if you could let us know at this point in time, that would be great. Okay, and what are you here for?
I don't believe it's a township agenda item.
Okay. What's that?
Speaking about Highland Park.
Okay, perfect. Okay, is anyone else here for Highland Park matter? You're here for Highland Park? Okay. Anyone else in the audience here for either an item relevant to the township or an agenda item? No? Okay, so we'll go ahead and just start the audience participation with respect to those two items at this point. So if you'd like to come to the podium and state your name and address, and feel free to share your comments.
Well, good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Arnie Cotty. I live at 1498 Letchworth Road, which is right in Highland Park, right adjacent to the park. I live there with my expectant wife and our 1.5-year-old son and dog. We moved into the neighborhood in September of '21, and we were eager to build a community and raise our family, raise our growing family. I'm here today with sympathy for the township, but also with hopes of urging you guys to address some serious safety concerns in Highland Park. I don't think that this is solely a Parks and Rec level issue. I don't even think that it's solely a police level issue. I think this is a township level issue that needs your attention. Since moving into the neighborhood, my family and our neighbors have witnessed escalating disruptive and dangerous behaviors in the park. Shortly after moving into our home, we experienced a fight between teenagers that escalated into an attempted shooting. And this was our welcoming into Lower Allen Township. It occurred directly in our backyard where our son and dog play. And since then, this wasn't really a one-off. We've experienced ongoing behaviors that suggest a tolerance for gang-like behavior. Trash litters the park. I think everybody knows that. It's also in our yard, and just 10 days ago, I found my dog chewing on a lighter and something wrapped in tinfoil. Fights are now the norm, and it's not only happening in the park, but also on our properties. Just last week, I returned from work and was met with a fight that was occurring in my neighbor's front or driveway that I had to intervene on. What really should be a family neighborhood has transformed into the likeness of what I think we all understand and doesn't need any more description. And the situation really has grown intolerable. My pregnant neighbor, her husband was here, unfortunately had to leave for work, had an encounter where she was carrying her infant and accompanied by her toddler and confronted some teens who were fighting in the pavilion. They responded by cursing her out in her face and telling her to go home. And then just recently, another incident involving the same family occurred where teens were smoking marijuana behind the trees that separate the park from our homes at their fence line, and despite knowledge that that family was right there in their backyard, not more than 10 feet away. Another time on a family walk, my wife and I, our family, witnessed one of the teens run right in front of us in broad daylight to dig around a bush, which is at the corner of the house that's across the street from ours. And once he found what he was looking for, he proceeded on his way. We later learned that the neighbor there has found needles in that bush. Most alarmingly, just a couple days ago, a group of teens were in the pavilion and they noticed me sitting inside my house in our sunroom facing the park. And when they noticed me, they gestured towards me obscenely, and one of them flashed their switchblade. And I frankly don't know what kind of message I'm supposed to receive from that. It's too far. I think that was just too far. In notifying my neighbors that I planned on attending this meeting, I've also learned of a conversation among the teens that was recently overheard, stating that one of the teens had a gun in their backpack. There are also other examples of trespassing that are pretty common occurrences. We've had our own personal experience of trespassing that resulted in the damaging of one of our fences. I give you all these examples really at a minimum to express or illustrate that these teens, they don't care, and they know that they can and they do get away with everything. I've been told time and time again to call the cops, and I understand we've done this, and we'll continue to call the cops when it's necessary. I just want to communicate that I don't think that this is a reasonable solution to the problem. It's evident among the attitude of the police, based on statements like, well, it's better that they're playing basketball in the park than doing something else in the community. But I'm here to say that they're doing something else in my backyard. So I also sympathize with the police in knowing that, they have their hands tied as well. And without hard evidence, plus the fact that they're minors, I don't think that there is a whole lot of tendency to prosecute minors. I just don't see this being a viable solution to the problem in the park. Temporary increases in patrols, they really don't do anything. Most importantly, calling the police puts a target on my family. And because of this, I'm not willing to accept this as a solution. Repeated encounters, I just also want to point out that repeated encounters with the police and the presence of the cameras without any consequences is reinforcement to the kids that they will get away with anything. These teens need to know that they have, that there are consequences for their actions, and most importantly, that they don't own Highland Park. I highly recommend that the township develops a comprehensive plan to restore safety in the community within our neighborhood. At a minimum, I would request that the township considers removing the pavilion and the basketball courts, or at least moving them further away from our homes. But I don't see a reason to continue to invite the behavior into our community. The pavilion and the basketball courts, I think, are invitations for them to gather in that area. I don't think that this would be a significant downgrade for the community, especially considering that the park is primarily used by young children. And in my observations of the park, I can probably count on one hand how many times the pavilion is used by individuals other than the teens in the park. There's also there's no reason to continue to allow anybody to occupy the park after dusk. It occurs every day, basically. I'll close by saying, again, I do sympathize, and I sort of have low expectations. My family and I want to stay in this community. We want to grow our family here. The simple fact is, if these encounters continue, we'll be forced to seek a safer, more livable community. So I would just ask that the board would act decisively to prove us and the teens wrong. And I just thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think first and foremost, it's, extremely concerning to hear of these incidents, and I'm sorry you're dealing with this with your family. I think maybe if we turn it over, I don't know if Manager Davis or if Director Hall want to sort of reply to some of the concerns that have been raised, and if you have some, initial discussions for a solution that the board could begin talking about.
Yeah, we know we've had a lot of the incidents you've talked about, we've been aware of for a long time, which is one of the reasons why we started the camera project to begin with. So Highland was one of the parks with the initial camera applications. Lower Island Community Park is another. So we're looking at expanding that program. The idea behind that was that we would put in the hands of every police officer access to that system. We are having training coming up on Monday, so there are certain pilot people who have access to it. And we've been successful in some cases of knowing things are going on, because they can access it on their phones and that also through their terminals. But that right now is a pilot handful. The goal was to put it in every police officer's hand so they could just look at those cameras and see if they needed to go over there and have anything going on. That's a project that probably by the end of this coming month will probably be finished. So, but I understand what you're saying too, that in and of itself is not going to resolve a solution to the problem. Officers do, as you know, patrol that sometimes when they can. But as the old excuse is always, well, there's a lot of township and we try to get every place we can. So the idea was that camera would allow them access to that and see if they really need to take the trip over there or not. Summer starts the whole problem over again, even more than it usually is. So I know that there's an increased volume. But, you know, perhaps what we need to look at is something that we haven't actually talked about here for a while, and that's crime control through environmental design. So there, you know, which is kind of what you're alluding to. There may be some environmental design things we need to take a look at there that we've not looked at before. So I have some experience in that, so I think that might be something that we can take a look at the problem and see. So, because I think that might be, if you environmentally control things, a lot of times the problem finds another place to go. So we'll take a look at some options there as well. But, you know, I thank you for your observation. I know that there's a hesitancy to call, but I would suggest that even if you just call 911 anonymously, if we're not aware of a problem, it helps us to build the reports on that. Captain Foltz reviews the reports all the time. We get every morning at 6 o'clock, the last 24 hours of reports come to our email. We take a look at it. So and that's how we determine sometimes where we're going to assign officers on hotspots. If we know that that's a place that's caused some problems in the past, but if we don't know if it's a current hotspot, then something else may take precedence. So I welcome phone calls just so we're aware. Even it's like, I know you can't do anything about this right now, but I just want you to be aware of that. And if we can have that open dialogue with anybody from there, that would be very helpful. So that would be my comments.
Anyone from the board like to add anything at this point before we?
I would just like to say regarding and I appreciate you coming, kind of wrapping up with some potential solutions, at least in your mind with it. The two that struck me was the pavilion, and this is just my lack of education where it's positioned. I mean, I know where it's positioned, but like how it's being used in the basketball courts. I mean, our parks generally, we don't have a county-wide park system, but, you know, people throughout all of our communities in the county and the adjacent counties, you might go to one park or another and share that. But our parks generally are for residents, and I'm just wondering, has there been any, short of some sort of study, is there any idea if these are folks that are outside of our township, let's say, using it as a destination to gather, and they might not even be residents or even in the community that are using the park? Because there might be some merit of eliminating, I guess this is the environmental design type of thing, or changing how we look at how we would deliver a pavilion or somewhere for a family to sit and enjoy a picnic or something, or even the basketball courts themselves. What is that doing in Highland Park? What would the other community members think about eliminating the idea that they can go play basketball with their child, or even people going to play basketball from the community over there? So I would say it might be good for us to try to get a better understanding, if we haven't already started, to see who's actually using the facilities there, and if it's just purely a destination coming from outside the area. It's just a comment. So thank you for the pointing that out, that's a possible solution.
My question would be, do we know, is it the same repeat offenders over and over again, or is this, I don't know if that's a fair question to ask. I mean, Director Hall, do you know that? Is it?
If at some point we contact people that are there, we would know that.
Okay.
Because we get IDs on people, but it doesn't mean just because there's a crowd there, we're going to know who the crowd is.
Sure.
So it can be problematic if we have not had contact with those juveniles.
And you're observing, I'm not asking you to identify anybody, but does it seem like the problems are coming from the same individuals, or is this just a random?
There's a core group of maybe 10 or more, and there's also, it seems like fluctuating individuals as well. And the ages, they range from elementary school all the way up to adults. And it's hard to say for sure, but it seems like year over year, the crowds do change quite a bit. So that leads me to ask if there are, group homes in the community, or is it simply, the apartments, near the neighborhood? I do see, oftentimes people are, migrating using the walkways, and they're going to neighborhoods across the street, across, going through Commercial Drive, going to the neighborhood back behind Highland Park. And then occasionally to comment on, I forget who was asked, or your question, occasionally we'll see a car that comes that we think is probably from outside of the neighborhood, and they park oftentimes in the handicap spot, and they're offloading a bunch of people. So I think it's a mix.
Again, thank you for being here, because some time ago, residents were here and expressed the same problem, and the response was the camera system, which I know is in its infancy, but without you showing up, we wouldn't know this is an ongoing problem. So, the camera system's clearly our first crack of helping the police to notice when there's an issue and get over there and help out. But if we know the problem is going to be persistent, we are going to try other means. I appreciate your suggestions on eliminating the basketball court and pavilion, but the thing I would hate to see is maybe one of your children are going to be a basketball star, and they would miss out on the opportunity to use something that they would probably use properly. So we really have to address the problem, which is it's a people problem. I mean, we have varying groups of people that are causing an issue for you, and we have to figure out a way to eliminate it.
And you mentioned that you were seeing these individuals after dusk?
Oh, yeah, all the time. A lot of times they'll leave when they're told, or they'll leave at dusk and come back, at 10, 12. One time, past midnight, we noticed them. They're always there.
And I guess this is more for a park question. There are signs posted that the park closes at dusk,
There are.
correct? Okay. So then is there anything that we're doing in terms of patrolling extra when it is after dusk? Or is there anything that can be done in terms of, if he were to, I don't know if every instance you're calling the police about this, but is that what you're requesting then from the residents, if they're seeing this after dusk, that they do let the department know?
Certainly, if there is a disturbance or there's something that, is an issue beyond just gathering, yes. That's one of the things that we had hoped with the cameras. There's 4 cameras installed currently. And, we could add more if we needed to, but whether it's dusk and or dawn, you can see people there on the cameras. Just because it's dark doesn't mean you can't see what's going on. So it just might mean that was the hope, that officers having access to that on their phones and in their cars could basically look at it and almost do initially like video patrol. If I've got 5 parks, which one do I really need to go to with limited staff? So if they say, I have people at Highland, they can drive to Highland and go to Highland to deal with the problem, even if it's after hours. Identifying who they are and notifying them that you can't be in the park, you're back here again, you'll get cited.
Okay.
The thing I'm worried about though is who's noticing them? It's usually our family. And, the retaliation concern is real, especially with whatever message they were trying to share with me the other day. So I just don't know. I don't know if really there's a good solution.
Well, and that message is unacceptable, so, whatever we need to do to clean that up, we certainly are gonna try to do.
And I guess that's kind of my follow-up question leading into both where you're kind of talking about the environmental ideas. I mean, this essentially boils down, it's becoming a cultural or societal issue. It's not trying to prosecute a single problem person who's breaking the law. This seems to be a recurrent issue, but we can't be the first municipality who's had a hotspot issue like this. There's got to be more ideas out there, or at least some success stories that go beyond just increasing patrols or, instituting more of community policing in that area. I mean, I still think it's a good idea for what it's worth to at least send the message that behavior is not tolerated in that area. I don't dispute the argument that they'll probably find somewhere else to go, but I would be curious to see if we can look into other ideas for, beyond that, or even in pursuing that social engineering. He brought up, a good point about, we are dealing with what sounds like dominantly minors causing the issues. Does that create, any further issues trying to curb this behavior, or?
No, if there's park rule violations, it doesn't matter if they're adults or minors. With minors, you may have to you may get parents involved. That certainly
Yeah.
adds to it, hopefully, and helps correct the problem, but not always. So it's going to depend upon who we would find there and what we can do.
And I guess I would also follow up, coming from Recreation and Parks Board, this also is a financial problem. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I believe a year ago they had worked up the total number of costs that between different things being vandalized there. And it was a pretty significant amount of money as well. And obviously to private homes in the area too that, we don't have calculations on. Oh, and I do apologize. Did you want to speak still, sir?
Well, Arnie did said everything pretty well.
Okay, sorry, I meant
Yeah,
to lead
if you'd like
with
to
you.
come to the podium, you're welcome to offer your comment. Oh, sure, that would be fine.
I guess a few things I'd like to add is just like, my family was the one who.
Oh, if you could, I'm sorry, could you just state your name and your address, though? That, thanks.
I live on Letchworth Road as well, just a few houses down from Arnie. And was there anything else I could?
Just your street, if you could say this.
1403 Letchworth Road.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, so just down the road, my wife and I and 1.5-year-old son and dog, we stroll by the park like every day. Usually puts us in a bad mood. Like, we'll go in really excited if it's a nice day out and trying to enjoy the weather, and we see something, we're like, that stinks, and we want to move now or something. Like, it's terrible. And the other day, like Arnie stated, we were at the park and there was no one there, so we're like, oh, this is gonna be great, we're gonna have a good time. So my son was going down the slide, having a blast, we were taking videos, it's just a really good time. And then these kids started coming from the apartments behind our neighborhood, and they were coming in droves, like they were on their electric scooters and bikes. I seen the neighborhood chat, or the neighborhood Facebook group talk about like people, like the kids just go like right in front of their cars, they don't care at all, like it's just dangerous. So these kids were coming, and they were right next to us. They were probably like, we were here, they were probably like by that wall, like that close, and they started talking about how this one girl's like, oh, he has a gun in his backpack. Oh, what, you have guns? He's like, no, I don't have a gun. And like they're just talking about having a gun, and I'm like there with my son. He's 1.5 years old. It's like, what am I supposed to do? Because I can't run away. I can't run away with him, so it's horrible. If I confront them, what's gonna happen? Like, there's a bunch of them. It's gonna be horrible again, and I can't call the cops because they know where I will be going because I'm just walking slowly over there. And so it's like, okay, like no one else was around with me, so it's like this is a terrible situation to be in. And like another situation, I looked out my front door and my elderly neighbor who has dementia, her house had these two kids just sitting on their front porch. And so if she saw them, she'd be very confused. Like, what are they doing there? They're just messing around. And I looked over and a bunch of them were dancing in the street. That time I did call the non-emergency number. I didn't keep peeking out my window, but I assumed they came, but I don't think anything came of it, because then I looked out a few minutes later, they were dancing in front of his house, which was frustrating. But yeah, it's hard when like you want to call the police, but then you don't want to because then like they'll know where to come and get you. Like the likelihood of that happening is hopefully low, but it's still there and it's scary when you have young kids and everything. But yeah, it's rough when like it's been going on since we moved in 5 years ago. Like there's a shooting now, they're talking about guns again. It's like, what are you supposed to do when the batch of kids that was here 4 years ago moved on, but then it's the new batch? And it's like, is it possible impossible, I don't know, this might be like a crazy thing, but is it possible to have like, you need to have an adult supervision to be at the park? I don't know if that's allowed, but like, I just feel like these kids have lost they shouldn't be allowed at the park if they're gonna like disrespect it and disrespect families. The language they use around us, it's just like, you can't imagine doing that when I was in high school, just crazy. Like, especially just around one Havergal, just little kids walking around like looking everywhere, so just, it's rough to see, so.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your comments as well. We appreciate them, and definitely sounds like we need to be developing some solutions here to address this problem. You
Yeah, I
know,
guess I
there's-
just, my greatest fear is, we've got two examples of families here and that are, basically don't feel safe in their home, and this concerns me that that starts that cycle. They want to leave, they leave, what happens next? What does the character of the neighbor happen after? I think this is I forget the phrase, but this is our time to intervene. This is our chance to make this better before this gets worse. So I hope we can see some better direction out of it. And as an aside, in education, our county has text to 911, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so you can text 911.
The situation there though was like.
I know, just so for any future issue, you can do that. If you ever feel you aren't safe to call, you can text.
Yeah, one other thing, I can't remember, sorry.
It's okay. But thank you guys both very much
I
for
just-
coming.
I actually do
Thank
remember
you.
one more thing.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yes.
One thing that we do know, because we take the walk around this neighborhood like every day, and the kids that actually live in the neighborhood, most of them play in their front yards, or I know that maybe in their backyards, I don't see that, but like you see multiple basketball hoops in their yards. You see these kids playing the football in their front yard, where they have a huge park that they could play with, but obviously their parents probably don't feel comfortable with them going there. So it's like, at what point is it like, okay, these other kids are coming in, disrespecting us, disrespecting our neighborhood, make everyone feel unsafe, why are they allowed to do that when the kids in the neighborhood are not allowed to enjoy it? It's like, just get rid of it. So, yeah.
I was just going to say, appreciate you both coming this evening and bringing this to our attention. Historically, in our parks, most of our pocket parks is what I call Highland Park. It's a neighborhood park. Our pavilions are close to the play structures, meaning they're there for families so that when their kids are playing, they can go over, maybe they're having lunch. So historically, I think, I'd say the majority of our parks, the pavilion is very close to the play structure. So I think that's why the location is there. But my concern with taking the pavilion down or moving the basketball court is we're just shifting the problem. Okay, are they going to go to the tennis court? Are they going to go to the open field? We're not dealing with the problem. We're just shifting it, taking a resource away from residents like you who deserve to have it. And I think we need to address the problem at hand, not just shift it and take another resource away from our community that deserves to use it. So we'll have to put our heads together. Staff will definitely need to do that and meet and determine what we can do to address these issues. And I do appreciate you coming tonight. And I just wanted to also share that we do have anonymous complaints. You do not, our department will take complaints anonymously. I know you don't want to call when you're right there, but I just wanted to make sure you were also aware of that. Thank you.
My question would be, of all the other parks, either Director Powell, Manager Davis, do we get this kind of feedback from any other park, or is it, because this is now the second time since I've been on the board that this has come up?
We've had some
at this
minor
park?
graffiti at parks, but nothing like this. Mhm. Nothing like this.
So it seems like we need to focus on a solution here for the residents. I mean,
If you will allow, I have a couple questions for the resident.
Sure.
Just curious, as I'm looking at the park and seeing how people are accessing the park, I see there's a walkway right next to your house that connects Letchworth into the park.
I'd love to buy that from the township.
So it's commonly used.
I want to get rid of it.
And I see there's also a access point. It's a little up Chatham Road, but it connects to those. Do you often see that utilized as well?
Yeah, very, those are funneling channels.
In my initial thought is, it seems like the park is a gathering point in the travels between, either the high school or the elementary school, all the way over to the apartments. You have a natural walking way that goes right through the park, and it's a great point for people to take that break for the students to to collect and mingle and things like that. I'm not necessarily saying shut down the accessibility, but, you know, maybe we have to rethink that, and truly make it a pocket park. You know, make it where it's more exclusive to the neighborhood itself. So that was just something I was wondering, and you kind of confirmed that, yeah, the people are using those pathways, and that's something that we could really take a look at too.
Or maybe figure out how to close access after a certain hour,
And-
perhaps.
And that's where the environmental design factor comes in.
Exactly.
Because if you can make it inconvenient, then they will move somewhere else. So, I mean, I think we have to take a look at that from a study point of view.
Make it a pocket park and not a pass-through park.
Right.
Like Sheetford does not
Correct.
have easements from different neighborhoods' yards into Sheetford. You have to enter Sheetford Park from the public street. That is the only way to get there.
Right. Is there anyone else here from the public that would like to speak to this issue? Okay, just please. If you don't mind coming to the podium and, and just state your address for the record.
1198 Letchworth Road. And I actually came because of the Facebook post from the neighborhood that said that there were going to be conversations tonight. I have lived in the neighborhood for 20 years, so I was there when it was a different neighborhood. It was a neighborhood that you had families and you went to the park and the kids were in the park and the kids played. Over the time, it just appears, and I see it just walking by. I know exactly what you're talking about, and the fact that you open up right into the park, and my heart breaks for you. Since I heard your story, it really does, that you just can't leave your house. Because just this past week, I've had 2 young kids in front of my property, which I'm further down on Letchworth. I'm closer to Vito's, closer to Weiss on that side. And I've had children walking back and forth, arguing. I've had children sit at my step in front of my house, popping open a bottle of Coke, trying to pop it open on the step, and then left the glass. One of the young boys was vaping. It was like trying to hide it, but he was vaping, and I was watching. And so I called my husband, and I said, yep, there's some activity out front. And fortunately, he came up, and I was going to go out. He came up and parked, and they started to walk away. And I said, well, I want to call the police. He goes, don't do it. They'll target our house. And I was like, oh, here we are. So I just want to add the volume to what they're saying about being new to the neighborhood. And I've been there for 20 years and used the park when it was a child-friendly park. And I don't think anybody's used the pavilion. Everybody in the neighborhood is on the HNA and they know what's going on. They're not using the park for fun. I'm assuming some of the kids will go during the day with their parents when the kids are at school and you have real young kids. And then after that, no. And the kids are playing now outside. We see it a lot more in front of their houses. We're like, wow, kids are out playing again. But they're not using the purpose of the park, and having the pavilion and having the courts and having the things there are not being used for what they're intended for. They're bringing other people in and they're using it. So it's kind of isolated all the residents of the community to our own homes. And that's sad, very sad, especially since the neighborhood was once the place everybody wanted to be or live. And I will say there's a lot more rentals in the community now, where there used to be homeowners and there's not. It's changed the dynamic quite a bit. So I just came to listen, but I had to add value to what you guys are talking about because I've seen it since I've been there so long that it's really changed a lot, so.
Well, thank you very much for your comments. Do you wanna-
May I?
Sure.
Thank
I
you.
think we have one.
I'm really confident that after this discussion, staff's gonna be, paying a lot of attention to figuring out some solutions, but, I mean, it's just a matter of time. Because if this young generation that happens to be there, whether it's 20 or 25 people, I would say now, because it's gonna be different people in a few years, right? Because they're gonna grow, move on, or whatever. But if they could be here hearing this discussion and know the power they actually have right now, I mean, over these residents, it would just come to a head really quickly, unfortunately, and hopefully, something bad wouldn't happen. So I just think it's a matter of time till they discover the power they have in their community. So, but I am confident that this discussion is gonna spur some action, so.
And do we have, sir, did you want to speak? you could just state your name and your address, please.
Yeah, my name's Stephen Babius. I live on Kent Road in Highland. I know these guys, and I know the park. I've been there 25 years. It's bad. I walk my dogs at night, and, I mean, I'm not afraid, but there's no good going on at the park, especially after dark. And what are the cameras actually used for, and what's the cost of that?
I don't know the cost right at this point, but what they're used for is just looking at activity in the park. That's what the intent was.
And what kind of activity are you actually looking for?
Congregations of people, as I said, it's been a pilot program. There's only at this point about 5 officers that have access to it. But the idea was to give them all access so they could take a look and see if there was disorderly conduct, if there was people, getting in activities they should not be in, and then that would be some reason to go over there and intervene in that.
Joe, you live there. Why don't you go down and check it out?
I'm very aware of it, actually. And I
You could be
agree.
a strong voice.
Absolutely. I have several questions I've been writing down as people were saying
Okay.
things. So,
We're gonna hold you
Yeah.
to that, because you're in our community.
just about everybody but you is on my street, actually. I live on at 1706 Letchworth Road. Director Hall, I was curious, so we have access to the video feed right now. Do officers get notified when there's movement or some kind of activity that's displayed, or is it more looking back at this point?
Everything is recorded, so they can go back and look at that. If there's an incident, they can save the incident to an incident area.
Okay.
But right now, it's just random opportunity of several officers to look at it. But ultimately, all 27 would have access.
Do you know whether that program has the capability to push notifications to officers when they're, like, say, it picks up, a human moving within its line of sight?
It has an alert feature to it, but I don't know how the alert feature works. We can set it for large items like cars, but I don't know if we can set it for individual people.
Okay.
That's part of the training piece that's coming up.
I know it's relatively new, so
Yeah.
but that's something we can
Yeah.
explore.
Well,
at least.
and I showed you when we first got it, we can actually block out residences so that we don't see the residents necessarily. So we eliminated that for privacy reasons.
Mhm. When we get, I say we, excuse me, I say we, like the police department, when we get a call or some kind of alert that there is activity at the park after dark, do we go out in every case, or are there factors that come into play, making a determination whether to go out to the park?
If we would get a call, we would go out there certainly. At this point, like I said, we have like 5 officers that have access, so that can be part of the discussion of what's enforced and what creates a response as
Yeah.
the officer would be available.
And they can't be watching it
Correct.
the whole
We
time.
don't have
but
anybody that's going to sit and just watch cameras.
If we can set up an alert system, I think that would be incredibly valuable, if we could delineate it over certain hours, perhaps.
I agree, but I'm not sure if you can determine a pixel area where you would do that. I don't know if it would be beneficial to cover the entire park. But there may be areas like the pavilion and those kind of things that you could basically block out and say if there's an alert there, they would get it.
Yeah, okay,
So we're certainly going to look at that as part of the training piece.
great.
Sorry,
You had
did
raised your hand.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on that. Again, it's in support of the officers. I don't know logistically, especially in terms of, notification overload. There are, in a ideal world, more priorities than, patrolling a park in a neighborhood. I sort of see this just surpassing the police level, of things, and toward what you're saying, more of an engineering
Right.
control. unfortunate. It should be controlled other ways, I think. And then what are you gonna do, prosecute a kid? I just don't see it happening.
For being in a park after dark, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, but to
Well,
that end,
it does
most
sound
of-
like you're bringing up other issues than
Yeah, I mean, a
just
gun is a
loitering. I
gun.
mean,
There-
these-
there
there's
has
some
been
of the-
issues.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some of
like
the
I-
issues you brought up are extremely concerning that
Yeah.
far surpass just loitering in a park,
Mhm.
at least in my mind.
How do you prosecute that, though?
Well-
They have to do something.
Well, it's only a matter of time till.
it becomes, that part becomes labor intensive on the part of the police. Whereas if you can environmentally design certain pathways or obstructions to pathways, then the problem, it's not that it disappears, but it becomes less convenient to do the
Yeah.
bad behavior
Right.
by doing that, if you can do it at all. So I think environmental design and crime prevention is probably, when you talk about engineering a problem away, maybe the thing we really need to take a look at. But that's something that we've not looked at before. So we can certainly apply some of those techniques. That's actually that's been around for a long time. So it's a matter of now looking at it from our perspective and see what benefits we can bring to that. So we
Yeah.
certainly
And
can
I
take a
hate,
look
I
at
hate
it.
to put everybody on the spot, but in terms of, from your timing and resource perspective and from Manager Davis's, I mean, would it be possible to sort of explore these solutions and come back at our next board meeting
Sure.
with some alternatives
Yeah,
or some
I think-
ideas? Because just based on the gravity of what these residents are saying, the extent to which it's happening, this is the second time residents have come about
Right.
this park. And, I just think it's really worth digging into. And it's sort of, in my mind, it's time sensitive because like you said, we're coming on summer. I mean, this is just going to
Sure.
get worse as we head into the warmer days. But I don't know if that's a realistic request of the board or if the board is behind that request. But I think, having something developed, I think that idea is phenomenal. These, environmental, I know Director Powell raised some great ideas. But I think if staff's resources can be expended on that in the next couple of weeks before the next board meeting, I think the board would be very appreciative of that. I don't want to speak for everyone up here,
No,
but
I think it's necessary.
I think
absolutely.
based on what we're hearing from our residents, we can't ignore it at
No,
this point.
I
so.
agree. I think it has to be a priority.
Maybe figuring out a way we can engage with the apartment complex, both the landlord and the residents perhaps, to try to address the problem that way. I mean, I'd reached out to you recently about a community watch essentially. There were some questions about that on the Facebook page too. Maybe that we can bring that into the discussion as well. I know there's a lot of limitations you need to put
Right.
on that.
We
But-
could, but what I'm hearing tonight, Commissioner, is that we have kind of a community watch effect. I mean, we have walking pedestrians and everything else, so sometimes that doesn't help resolve the problem. So it gives vision to the problem.
In
We kinda
combination
have
with-
that, So we have to
yeah.
kind of come up with a solution.
In combination with whatever environmental solution we're able
Right.
to come up with, maybe we can cover all our bases that way.
Okay.
So
Agreed.
just a thought.
Sure.
But yeah, we've been, every few months, we have a rash of car break-ins too in our neighborhood. I can't help but think that it's related to, folks engaging in that sort of activity in the same vicinity. So it's important to all of us that we figure out how to address it. So, thank you.
Okay, so is that a fair request of the board?
Yep.
Okay, you
Absolutely.
don't need formal action for
I
that
don't.
or anything?
I do not.
Okay,
We'll come
Okay.
back next meeting, and we'll have some discussion amongst ourselves and come back
Okay.
with some thoughts for the board.
wonderful, okay. And thank you so much to all the residents that took their valuable time to come here tonight. On behalf of the board, we very much appreciate it and appreciate the lines of communication, and please continue to keep them open so that we continue to be aware. So thank you very much. Okay, and just to double check, is there anyone else in attendance who would like to participate in anything on the agenda or any other matters pertinent to the township? Okay, all right, well, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next section of the agenda, which is the consent agenda. At this time, any commissioner, staff member, anyone in attendance who would like to have an item on the consent agenda removed for further discussion can request so now. Is there a request for the removal of any items on the consent agenda tonight?
Madam President, if no objection, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Brown and a second from Commissioner Schwartz. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. At this time, we will recess to executive session to discuss a personnel matter involving the police lieutenant candidates, and we will reconvene when our discussion has ended. Okay, we are reconvening this regular meeting after recessing to executive session to discuss a personnel matter involving the lieutenant candidates. At this time, we will turn to Director Crone for the updates on human resource items on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam President. The first item there is a discussion of possible action moving Benjamin Powell, Director of Public Works, from probationary to regular full-time status effective June 4th, 2025. By all accounts, he's doing a spectacular job and has fulfilled all the requirements of his probationary period.
Wonderful.
Madam President, I would make a motion to move Benjamin Powell, Director of Public Works, from probationary to regular full-time status effective June 4th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Brown, a second from Vice President Nagy. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0, and welcome to regular full-time status, and thank you for all the hard work you've been doing so far, and look forward to much continued success.
Next item, discussion and possible action adopting Resolution 2025-R27, appointing Ricardo Lopez as the Information Technology Specialist in the Administration Department effective June 16th, 2025. Mr. Lopez has seen our job description, and he was tendered a offer of employment, which he has accepted. So pending the board's action, we would be able to move forward with that.
I will happily make the motion to adopt Resolution 2025-R-27, appointing Mr. Ricardo Lopez as the Information Technology Specialist for the Administration Department, effective June 16th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Vice President Nagy, a second from Commissioner Vallone. Any questions, comment, or discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0, and welcome aboard. And what's his first start date? Is it the 16th?
I wish
then?
it was sooner, but
Oh.
it's June 16th.
June 16th is when he'll start. Okay, great. Okay, anything else?
Nothing more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Hall.
Thank you, Madam President. The first item on the agenda is 9A for public safety. It's a discussion and possible action approving the eligibility list for police lieutenant submitted by the Civil Service Commission on May 19th. In your packet was a copy of the letter from the Civil Service Commission signed by Terry Lanker, who's the chairman, establishing the candidate list of Alex Militex, number 1 at 84%, Laura Tamanowski, number 2 at 83%, and Jeremy Reed, number 3 at 83%. So they both had 83%, so the commission looked at their rules and applied the rule that said when tied scores, you take the score that is, not the score, but you take the application that was submitted first. And that was, in fact, documented on the application when it was submitted, Laura Tamanowski. So that's how we ended up with those rules. And they approved that on the 19th at their commission meeting.
Okay. So we'd be looking for a motion to approve the eligibility list.
Make the motion, Madam President, to approve the eligibility list for police lieutenant certified by the Civil Service Commission, May 19th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Vice President Nagy, a second from Commissioner Schwartz. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
And with follow-up with that, Madam President, I would move then to approve the promotion of the police corporal to lieutenant from the list submitted by the Civil Service Commission on May 19th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Vice President Nagy, a second from Commissioner Brown.
Sorry, Madam
Sure.
President, I think we need to amend the motion to specify who we are promoting.
Okay. Would you like to withdraw your motion and restate it? please?
Oh, yeah.
I withdraw
actually,
my second.
And I will amend then that we will be approving the promotion of Police Corporal to Lieutenant of Alex Militex from the list submitted to the Civil Service Commission on May 19th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Vice President Nagy and a second from Commissioner Brown on the restated motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0, and congratulations to Officer Militix.
Item C
Yep, item C.
is discussion and possible action approving the eligibility list for police officer submitted by the Civil Service Commission on May 19th, 2025. In your packet was a letter from Chairman Lenker again, and basically what you find on that list, unfortunately, is one name and two that are vacant. And that was, there were originally 60 applicants to the county consortium we participate in. Half of those applicants did not show up on test day. And until we got done being whittled down, we ended up with one candidate that, after backgrounds and other candidates who had been received offers already from other departments or withdrew because of failure to give information, we ended up with one name. This is, and Aaron Utley is a veteran. He does not have Act 120, so what we would ask is that the commission, or that the commissioners approve that civil service list, and then he would be the number one candidate to go to the academy.
Madam President, I move that we approve the eligibility list for police officers submitted by the Civil Service Commission on May 19th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Schwartz and a second from Commissioner Brown. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
And I also move that we approve the hiring of Aaron Utley as police officer from the list submitted by the Civil Service Commission on May 19th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Schwartz and a second from Commissioner Brown. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hall. Director Sweeney, I understand you're coming to the podium for purposes of purposes of audiovisual. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam President. Just two items under Community and Economic Development. The first item is a zoning hearing board update. As you all are well aware, on May 15th, 2025, the zoning hearing board heard docket 2025-03. This is for the Liberty Forge Golf Course. Primarily with the Liberty Forge Golf Course being developed, they are proposing 193 age-restricted single-family homes on the golf course side. The docket was specifically to allow for the Creekside mini golf course, driving range, and the restaurant to remain as principal uses. Per our zoning ordinance, typically that use was basically a ancillary use to the golf course. With the golf course going away, the zoning hearing board heard that, and they upheld that variance to allow for the Creekside mini golf and driving range and restaurant to move forward. And that is it. There were no applications submitted for the June meeting, so we will likely not have a June zoning hearing board meeting.
Okay, thank
That's
you
it
for
for the
that
update.
update.
Item B is discussion and possible action, hopefully appointing commissioner or commissioners as members of the zoning ordinance steering committee. Just looking for hopefully nominations for board members to accompany us on the committee.
Okay, I'll open the floor to see if there's any interest or volunteers to participate in this committee.
Can we nominate ourselves, Madam
You
President?
absolutely can.
I'll nominate.
Okay.
I'll nominate, yeah, I'll second Joe's nomination.
I will third it.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to appoint Commissioner Schwartz as the commissioner member representative on the zoning ordinance steering committee. Would any other commissioner like to participate or be a member of this committee before we close this item?
Madam President, I believe Vice President Nagy would like to.
Yeah, I would be interested in doing.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, great. So we have a motion and second for Vice President Nagy to also participate. So it looks like there'll be 2 commissioner members sitting on the Zoning Ordinance Steering Committee. Thank you very much for your willingness to participate in that, and
Yes, thank you very much. We are very grateful. And just to remind everybody, we will have these meetings, they will be during the day. When we get the whole group, we will just try to discuss what day works best, probably monthly during the day. But you will have the opportunity to participate virtually, just because I know it's going to be difficult for a lot of people that work to get here during the day.
And then Director Sweeney, will you provide an update following each committee meeting at a board meeting? The board meeting following the committee meeting, would you just
Yes,
provide a brief
we
update?
can certainly do that if you're so
Yeah,
inclined to
that
want
would be great.
an update
Yeah.
at that frequent. We can certainly do that, not a problem at all.
That'd be great.
That's great, Madam President. And where that helps is so that we're not communicating with each other and violating any Sunshine Act stuff, because this is an important piece. Yep.
Completely understood. We'll do it. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very
so
much.
Thank you,
much, Director
Director.
Sweeney. Okay, Public Works, Director Powell.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. The only item on the agenda for Public Works tonight is discussion and possible action for awarding the High Associates Basin Retrofit Project to Kinsley Construction LLC, the lowest responsible bidder at $179,395. And I provided a memo to the board outlining the summary of our bid opening that occurred. We had four bids that came in, and there was some issues that arose from the parent low bidder at the time and the second low bidder. So we've sorted through those issues with the solicitor's advice, and we're asking the board to award it to Kinsley Construction.
Okay, thank you. We'll be looking for a motion to approve, or to award the project.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Schwartz.
Really brief, Madam President. Did we confirm with Kinsley that this is the correct amount, just to make sure that we're?
Yes, I sent an email to both Malco Landscape outlining the issue with their bid amount, and then I also sent an email to Kinsley Construction as well. Kinsley Construction did respond back favorably with much thanks that they could be awarded the project.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah.
Taken care of, thank you.
Madam President, I'll move that we award the High Associates Basin retrofit project to Kinsley Construction LLC, the lowest responsible bidder at $179,395.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Schwartz, a second from Commissioner Brown. Any discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, thank you,
Great,
Director
thank
Powell.
you.
Director Knoll, looks like you have one item for us tonight.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I am here to request discussion and possible action for approving a conflict waiver for Solicitor Minor, as he represents both the sewer authority and the township, and we are looking at redoing the management agreement between the two entities. So he just, not that I feel that we will need to use him, I don't feel that he thinks he may need to be used. He probably will review the document at the end to make sure that everything is kosher between the two entities. But he just wanted there to be an acknowledgement to waive the conflict of interest that it could possibly create, being that he represents both.
Okay, so we'd be looking to approve a conflict waiver. And I think maybe before a motion is made by one of my co-commissioners, I just wanted to ask a quick question. So for the conflict waiver, assuming that it is approved by the board, could we condition the waiver on the fact that if a claim arises about the agreement, that we would each obtain separate counsel at that point? Or is that sort of included? I'm assuming he probably included that in his conflict waiver, but I just didn't see anything in writing, so I wasn't sure if we, on our motion, could just make that. I mean, typically.
Sure you could.
Yeah, I think I would just feel more, I mean, the low likelihood that, no, it would just be with respect to that matter. If litigation arose based on the agreement, that we would just agree the township would seek other counsel for.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with that condition.
Just something more contentious than what we're anticipating and.
Oh, sure.
Just
No, this would be
negotiate.
like real
Yeah.
like a
Mhm.
litigious claim, like that goes to litigation. or-
Yeah, we're probably very aligned with the authority,
Yeah.
so I don't anticipate that becoming a problem. But
No,
that
no, I'm
makes-
sure it's a very low likelihood.
Yeah,
It's
but
just.
that makes total sense to
Yeah.
suggest,
Yeah.
so, yeah,
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
excellent. Hearing that, Madam President, I would move that we approve the conflict waiver for the solicitor regarding the township's management services agreement with Lower Allen Sewer Authority, with the understanding and reserving the right to revoke the waiver in the event that a substantial conflict arises.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Schwartz and a second from Commissioner Brown. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Noel. Okay, Manager Davis.
Thank you,
Take
Madam
it to you.
President. I just have one item tonight for discussion and possible action. This would be for the board to consider adopting a resolution that would appoint, excuse me, my allergies, appoint the township manager as the official authorized signer to execute documents and agreements between the township and PennDOT for our RTP grant projects. These are for the two projects, one at Royal and Was by the park and the other one at 18th and Hummel. Prior to this, we had resolutions defining an actual person, not a title. So we're looking to change them so that we do not have to do this every time staff would possibly change. So I don't plan to go anywhere, but we would like to change this as we did with the pension plan administrator. We made that the finance director, so it would make my position, the township manager, as the official signer for all documents associated with these two projects.
Okay, great. We'd be looking for a motion to adopt this resolution then.
Make a motion, Madam President, to adopt Resolution 2025-R28, designating the township manager as the official authorized to execute all documents, agreements between the township and PennDOT for the Regional Transportation Plan grant funds for pedestrian safety improvement projects MPMS 115788 and 115789.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Vice President Nagy, a second from Commissioner Vallone. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Manager Davis.
Thank you.
Okay, and before we turn to the commissioner reports, I'll just open the floor to any directors, staff, captains. If there's anything for the good of the order tonight before we get close to concluding. Okay, hearing none, we'll turn to the commissioner reports, and we'll start with Commissioner Schwartz, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I had one question I was reserving from the pavement management program discussion. I was just curious, and if we don't have an answer right now, that's perfectly fine. I was wondering to what extent we already budget for these sorts of improvements and this sort of maintenance beyond what we're expecting to take in from liquid fuels funds. Does anybody know that shooting from the hip by
Well,
chance?
I could speak to, in the past, we were only spending liquid fuels funds only,
Okay.
slightly more every other year.
All right.
So when I became Public Works Director, kind of took that, challenged that notion and started to do some additional paving. This year, we're at $1 million. Does that include paving and infrastructure, Director Powell? That's with stormwater and paving,
there
correct?
was-
No, it
I
was,
think the paving was around 450,000.
Mhm.
The ADA was 300,000,
So
and then the
700.
other 300,000 or 400,000 was coming from the stormwater fund
Mhm.
for the stormwater
Okay.
infrastructure.
the year prior in Allendale, we spent a little over 1 million. 1.2 million to be exact, to do that project. So we've definitely increased, and we've paved every year since I've become Public Works Director, not every other year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Excellent. Yeah, it's absolutely necessary, and I'm glad that we're looking at how to make it work.
Mhm.
So I appreciate all
I have to also speak to this. The maintenance was not done in the past. We would do minimal crack sealing, but we weren't doing maintenance treatments. So as the roads are getting towards that, you almost look at it and say, the road's just paved. Well, there's maintenance associated to keep that and get better life and longer life out of that road that we could start doing. And this program kind of exposed that a little bit for the township. So if we could start doing some of that maintenance when a road's 3, 4, 5 years old and extend the life, get better use out of the funds we're using to pave and then continue to pave as we can throughout the process. But the maintenance is also very important. And we bought the crack sealer with the liquid fuels money, which was a great asset to our equipment for public works.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that if you remember, you approved that purchase back in February or early March, I believe. And the Public Works guys have already gone through one pallet of sealer, and they're trying to find in their budget where they can use more. You know, in the past, they were very limited. Fairview Township was great. We have a good working relationship with them. They were great to be able to loan that equipment, but oftentimes we could only get it for 2 weeks of the year, and how many days do you lose to rain or anything like that? So they're going at it, really trying to do what they can with that, and we've already hit, you know, our limits for that in terms of where we have that kind of repair allocated in our budget. But the other thing I wanted to highlight too was his costs were only for paving. So Manager Davis highlighted, you know, we spent 1.2 million at Allendale last year, but only about 1,068,000 was for paving. So you know, $100,000 or more was allocated just to ADA. This year we're paying $300,000 in Ross Boyne Manor for ADA upgrades. But that's coming from liquid fuels. So really, you know, I want to highlight that too. We're pulling more from liquid fuels. If we truly want to use all of our liquid fuels money, then we're going to have to account for the things like the ADA improvements elsewhere in our budget. And if you go through a neighborhood that needs lots of upgrades, that could be a significant amount. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was my only question. Otherwise, I hope everybody had a good and meaningful Memorial Day this weekend. I noticed in the public safety report, there was a highlight of some of our officers taking time to do the law enforcement treatment initiative training, which I'm very glad to see them doing. It's a program that was I think it was initiated by then Attorney General Shapiro and is being continued by Attorney General Sunday, thankfully, and it's basically meant to rather than if people are dealing with substance abuse issues, rather than just throwing them in prison, you get them connected with the resources and treatment that they need to, you know, become, you know, productive members of the community. So I'm very encouraged to see that being prioritized. And I also wanted to thank Director Hall and everybody else who's going to be working on it for doing what we can to address or figure out how to address the issues that we're having in Highland Park. It is very important to all of us. It's you know, having my wife grew up there and is very you know, attached to the community, and it's very special to her and to everybody who lives there. So you know, I think that it's very worth pouring our time and attention into it and figuring out what we can do. So I really appreciate that. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Valone.
Thank you, Madam President.
I won't forget you.
You
I
haven't.
had to say that.
You
I had to
haven't
say it.
yet. And I'll never forget that I've
just teasing
that I've
you.
forgotten
I had to say
you.
it at least once. I mean, it just.
Oh, this has been such a good time. It really has. I'll start with the road work and the paving. I'm just so glad we had this discussion tonight. You know, we're here later tonight. We had a couple of issues, you know, obviously the Highland Park thing I want to talk about a little bit more too. But the paving thing, I'm real confident that, Director Knoll is going to guide us in the budget time. And we're gonna have to come to grips with maybe making some investments and making that decision, I would say. Maybe you don't make it, all the investments that are suggested or whatever. But I think we're gonna be in good enough shape when Director Knoll lets us know what we can spend to be able to get on a pace to get our roads up to par for our residents. One of the other commissioners mentioned it today. It's something that all of us see every single day. Every resident, I think just about every resident and taxpayer in the township is using our roads. The liquid fuels money going to things, it isn't just obvious that that money goes to other things other than just paving and taking care of the actual top of the road that we see or drive on. So that's a good education in itself. And I just look forward to the process, and I look forward to hearing more about it, because I think it's something that's gonna just be, the community's gonna see. And I think in the end, I'm confident that we're gonna see it, and we're gonna be able to get through that process and basically offer that with funds that we have. So that's good. Highland Park, I think Commissioner Schwartz, I have no doubt that you're gonna keep the neighborhood, since you live right in the heart of it there, up to speed. I think what I've experienced in Lower Allen over the years with these type of things, because they come and go, we have a great police department. We have a great staff that, kind of keeps up with these things. And I have no doubt that tomorrow the police are going to pay so much attention to that issue over there that it will probably quiet down in the short term. But then residents are going to not see stuff, and they're not gonna make the calls. And like the one resident just asked me, what else can we do or whatever, and I just said, the number one thing is stick with it, and I just said, as Director Hall said, keep the reports coming, so it stays kind of near the top of the pile. And for all of us, we get that lull, because it does quiet down, because our police do a good job getting out there. And when the gentleman was up here today, and the first thing he said, and I think I understood what he was saying right off the bat, but really it settled in, that he was saying it's not really a police issue, because the police will go and do a good job. I think he's confident of that, but then it settles down because they did such a good job, and then we don't hear about it till it builds back up. So I think the biggest thing's gonna keep everybody, including the community over there, really involved. That's my experience with some of these little ebbs and flows that we've had with public safety issues like that around the township over the years. So, but I think if it leads to the engineering of how things, the preventative stuff, I think the next generation won't maybe have it as easy to get in there. So if we play the long game with it, I think we'll all be better off. On election day, I sat at one of our polls out where residents are from the area where Liberty Forge and the zoning hearing board, relevant to that. I have, all the years, all the election cycles that I've sat out, basically talking to residents, and I was there from the beginning to pretty much to the end of the day. And the single most talked about issue, concern from residents, and things that I know for sure aren't the case, being kind of rumored around right now, coming at us. This is going to be an interesting conversation when that plan finally gets submitted. I think there's going to be a lot of people, because there's a lot of misunderstanding. And short of the board kind of getting involved, which we shouldn't, we're going to need to know, have updates. And I don't think it's going to be good enough for either Commissioner Schwartz or myself being involved with the planning commission to be able to share with the other commissioners, because I don't know how appropriate that is as we just start talking in a circle, even if it's independent conversations. So I would say as many updates as possible when that process starts. That will be helpful, I think, for everybody, including the public, because the public, I can guarantee you right now, just based on I think they were alerted by the zoning hearing board advertisements and those notices. People have all kinds of ideas of what's going to happen and what we shouldn't and do. And those opinions are going to be all over the map. So I would just ask that we stay vigilant to that, which I'm sure we will when that time outcomes. That's all I had, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown.
Yeah, again, thank you to the residents that come out and spoke tonight and made us aware of a problem again. I have the utmost faith that that will be taken care of here. I wanted to say thank you to all of the directors for the reports. I really enjoy reading them. You know, going through Director Powell addressing some of the flooding issues and on Lower Allen Drive and just seeing how connected you are, all the permits coming in. I find it interesting to look how many new construction permits and, you know, various things like that. And the public safety, you know, I get through all that. I like seeing, okay, well, what kind of crime was done this month and how many trips did the EMS, you know, put out. But, you know, from time to time it becomes personal, and today that did for me, where some very close friends, you know, had to use 911 and for emergency situation. And it's not every day that everyday people administer CPR and get through things like that. It's a traumatic thing. But the person that did that had nothing but the kindest words to say about both the police officers and the EMS service that arrived. And, you know, I guess I shouldn't be surprised at this point at how well things work, but the remote location in which this occurred, to have police and EMS there within 3 to 4 minutes in the middle of a golf course, in the middle of Liberty Forge, I think is just so impressive. And just the respect and the control in which both the officer and the EMS handled the individual that was both in trouble and the individual that was providing aid. I just want to say thank you. You all should be very proud.
Thank you for sharing that positive story with us, Chuck.
Thank you, Madam President. I mean, basically just highlight appreciate the work going into the paving and looking forward to the timeline and action plan out of it, and happy to support all of you guys in moving that forward. I think that's something this new board has been pining for years, and we're happy to have you guys working on it, and Manager Davis to have pushed it through and got it moving. So thank you guys. And to the Highland Park situation, yeah, I can't stress enough how much want to see some resolution for our residents, and trying to put myself in their shoes. And you know, your home is supposed to be your safe spot, and I can't imagine what they're going through, and even for us as the commissioners, to starting to lose people because of an issue in a neighborhood, I think is unfortunately a downward spiral none of us want to even begin to start thinking about. So I look forward to the ideas and solutions and getting things moving. And thank you, Madam President, for kind of putting a clock on that and bringing it back around to keep us moving forward on it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice President Nagy. I just have 2 quick updates. Just so everybody's aware, we do have a Finance Committee meeting on Thursday afternoon this week. So I'm sure at the next meeting, Director Knoll will have an update coming from that committee meeting. Also, and I'm not sure, I think that was in our packets, but the official publication about our 175th anniversary event has been distributed. So please mark your calendars for October 4th. I know the Planning Committee has been doing a great job. I've just been sort of a bystander on the committee, but they've been doing a fabulous job and have been putting on a lot of effort into planning this. And I just want to say thank you, and we're really looking forward to what should be a very, very fun event on October 4th at the Lisburn grounds there. And lastly, I just want to say, really appreciate everyone's, we'll do the appreciation again, but I sincerely appreciate everyone's patience and professionalism in addressing the residents' concerns tonight. It just makes me sitting here very proud of everyone and just grateful to be working with all of you. So with that, I want to say I think it was a great meeting, and I look forward to seeing everybody at our next meeting in June. So have a good night. Thank you.